He built a $1 billion empire from nothing, slept on concrete, fought betrayal, and rose to the top of the world. But just when he thought he had conquered everything, one silent truth shattered his pride. The ordinary wife he cheated on was secretly the real billionaire behind his success. What happened next did not just change his marriage. It exposed the true cost of ambition, the price of ego, and the meaning of real wealth. Stay with me, because this is not just a story about money. It is about betrayal, redemption, and a twist that proves the richest man in the room is not always the one with the most power.
I was not born powerful. I was born hungry, the kind of hunger that lives in the bones and whispers at night. Our house smelled of rust and boiled rice. Rain leaked through the ceiling onto my school books. I promised myself I would become a billionaire, not for pride, for safety. Years later, I slept on the cold floor of my first office, an empty warehouse with flickering lights and dust thick in the air. Investors laughed at me. One called me delusional. Another said, "Men like me build nothing." I believed them. For one terrible night, that was when she found me. Anya, simple cotton dress, quiet eyes. She brought tea in a steel cup and sat beside me on the concrete floor. She never asked why I was failing. She asked what I was learning. When my partner stole our seed money and disappeared, I shattered. I felt betrayal, like broken glass, inside my chest. I wanted revenge. She chose wisdom. She sold her jewelry without telling me, paid our debts, saved my name when I had none. I asked her once why she believed in me. She smiled softly and said, "Because you are building more than a company. You are building a man." I worked harder. Days blurred, nights burned. Failure after failure sharpened me. Years passed. The warehouse became a tower. The tower became a skyline. My name appeared on global lists. Billionaire, visionary, self-made. But success is loud, and ego is louder. I began to see her as ordinary, too simple for boardrooms, too quiet for galas. And in my arrogance, I betrayed her with a woman who admired my wealth, but never my scars. When Anya found out, she did not scream. That silence was worse than thunder. She placed divorce papers on my marble table. My hands trembled. Then she opened a folder. Bank statements, equity transfers, silent investments, made years ago. In my darkest days, the majority shareholder of my empire was her, the ordinary wife. The ordinary wife, the secret billionaire, who built me while I was busy building myself. My knees touched the floor, not from defeat, from awakening. I saw it then. She was never behind me. She was beneath the foundation. And as she turned toward the door, I realized I was about to lose the only wealth that ever truly mattered. My voice broke before my pride did. I said her name as if it were air, and I was drowning. She paused, but did not turn. The room felt enormous. Cold marble, tall glass walls, a city glittering outside. That suddenly meant nothing. I walked toward her slowly, each step heavier than the years I had climbed. I told her I was ashamed, not of losing money, of losing myself. I confessed the emptiness that followed every award, every headline, every handshake that felt like polished plastic. I told her success had become noise, and she had always been the music. Her shoulders trembled, not from weakness, from restraint. She said she loved the man who slept on concrete and dreamed with fire in his eyes. She did not recognize the man who slept on silk and dreamed of applause. Her words cut clean, precise, true. I saw my reflection in the glass wall, tailored suit, diamond watch, hollow gaze. For the first time since childhood, I felt small and honest. I told her to take everything, the company, the shares, the house. I would begin again, if that was the price of becoming worthy. Silence lingered. Then she finally turned. Her eyes were wet, but steady. She said wealth was never the test. Character was. She had hidden her fortune, not to deceive me, but to see whether I would build with integrity when no safety net existed. And I had, until I forgot why I began. She stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth I had almost lost forever. She placed her hand over my racing heart and whispered that empires fall when their foundations crack, but foundations can be repaired if the truth is faced. Without excuses, I closed my eyes and let the shame burn through me. When I opened them, I made a promise that would cost more than any investment I had ever signed. I promised to rebuild us before I rebuilt anything else. No headlines, no grand gestures, only truth. I resigned as CEO the next morning. The board stared at me as if I had lost my mind. Perhaps I had. The reckless mind that chased valuation over values. I handed temporary control to the executives and walked out without security, without cameras, without the armor of importance. For the first time in years, I drove myself home. The steering wheel felt strange in my hands. Real. Anya waited in the garden, barefoot on the grass, sunlight in her hair. She did not speak. She watched. I knelt before her, not in drama, but in surrender. I told her I would earn her trust, the way I once earned my first dollar. Slowly, with discipline, with sweat. Days turned into weeks. I attended counseling, not to defend myself, to confront myself. I wrote letters to the employees whose loyalty I had taken for granted. I dissolved contracts that thrived on exploitation. Profits dipped. Shareholders panicked. News outlets speculated that I was unraveling. They were correct. The old version of me was. One evening, Anya brought tea again, in the same steel cup she had carried into that dusty warehouse years ago. My throat tightened at the memory. She said nothing about forgiveness. She watched consistency, integrity repeated daily, without applause. Months passed. Our conversations grew softer. Laughter returned carefully, like sunlight after a storm. One night, she showed me a document, a trust, not for us, for thousands of young founders, from streets like mine, funded quietly by her fortune. She asked if I would lead it, not as a billionaire, as a mentor who remembers hunger. Tears blurred my vision. This was the empire that mattered, not towers of glass, but lives lifted. I reached for her hand, feeling gratitude, deeper than ambition. And as she looked into my eyes, searching for the man she once believed in, I realized the final test was not success, but whether I could protect it from ego, from temptation, from the slow poison of forgetting again. I accepted her offer with trembling humility. The first mentorship session was held, not in a tower, but in a modest hall that smelled of dust and ambition. Young faces, nervous hands, eyes burning, the way mine once did. I told them the truth, not the magazine version. The nights of panic, the betrayal, the arrogance, the nearly losing. The only woman who ever loved me, without conditions. They listened, in absolute silence, not to my wealth, to my wounds. After the session, a young man approached me. He said he had nothing but an idea and fear. I recognized that fear. I placed my hand on his shoulder, the way Anya once did for me, and I told him, fear is honest. Let it teach you. Do not let it rule you. That evening, Anya stood at the back, watching quietly. Pride shone in her eyes, not for my success, for my transformation. At home, we began again, with small rituals, cooking together, long walks without phones, conversations that were not interrupted by notifications or ambition. Trust did not return in a single moment. It returned in layers, transparent passwords, open calendars, unfiltered confessions. One night, as rain tapped gently against the windows, she rested her head against my chest and whispered that forgiveness is a decision, repeated daily. I held her tighter, understanding that love is not proven by wealth accumulated, but by character sustained. When no one is watching, the foundation felt stronger. Yet deep inside, I sensed another challenge forming, not from competitors, not from markets, but from a decision that would demand everything we had rebuilt. The challenge arrived in the form of an offer. A global conglomerate wanted to acquire my company. The valuation was historic, numbers so large, they felt unreal. The media called it the deal of the decade. Advisors urged me to accept immediately. They said it would secure generations. They said it would crown my redemption story. But the contract hid a clause, silent, strategic, Factories would move overseas. Thousands of workers, from neighborhoods like mine, would lose their jobs. Efficiency, they called it. I called it abandonment. The board reminded me of my fiduciary duty. Shareholders demanded growth. My old hunger stirred faintly. The applause, the legacy headlines. Billionaire exits at peak. That night, I sat alone in the dark. The city lights flickered, like restless thoughts. Anya joined me quietly. She did not ask what I would choose. She asked who I wanted to become. After choosing, her question settled into my chest, heavier than the offer. I thought of the young founders, of the steel cup of tea, of her selling her jewelry. To protect my name, wealth had once tested me. Through poverty, now it tested me. Through abundance. The next morning, the boardroom felt colder than any warehouse floor I had ever slept on. Executives waited. Lawyers prepared documents. Pens aligned precisely. Beside my seat, I stood. My voice was steady. I said profit without principle is merely polished failure. I declined the acquisition. Gasps echoed. One director called it reckless. Another warned that investors would revolt. Perhaps they would. But for the first time in years, my reflection in the glass wall looked whole. When I returned home, Anya opened the door. She searched my face for the answer. Before I spoke, I told her, we kept the company. We kept the workers. We kept our soul. Her eyes filled slowly, not with relief alone, with certainty. She stepped toward me and whispered, that true billionaires measure wealth by lives protected. As she held my hand, I felt a quiet triumph, greater than any headline. Yet even in that warmth, a message buzzed on my phone, urgent, unexpected, from someone who knew the secret of her hidden fortune. The message was brief. A former associate of Anya. He had discovered the early transfers, the silent investments, the hidden architecture of our empire. He threatened exposure, not for truth, for leverage, money, influence, control. Years ago, that threat would have terrified me. Now it clarified me. I showed Anya the message. No secrets, no shielding her. To protect my pride. She read it calmly. Then she smiled. With that same quiet strength that once held me together. On a warehouse floor, she said, let the truth breathe. We called a press conference. Not to defend, to reveal. Before cameras and flashing lights, I told the world that the true architect of my success stood beside me. I spoke of her sacrifice, her wisdom, her unseen ownership. I confessed my betrayal publicly, not in detail, but in responsibility. Silence filled the room. Then questions. Then headlines. But something unexpected happened. The market did not collapse. Investors did not flee. Messages poured in. Not of outrage. Of respect. Employees said they felt proud to belong to a company led by honesty. Young entrepreneurs wrote that they learned character scales faster than valuation. The associate withdrew quietly. Power loses grip when truth removes its shadows. That evening, Anya and I returned to the old warehouse. We had preserved it. Dust still floated in thin shafts of light. The concrete floor still held echoes of our beginning. I placed 2 steel cups between us. Tea steamed gently into the quiet air. I told her, I once wanted to be a billionaire, to feel safe. Now I understood. Safety is not built by numbers in an account. It is built by integrity in the heart. She rested her head against my shoulder. No marble, no cameras, just breath, just gratitude. I learned that success without loyalty is noise. Wealth without humility is fragile. Love without honesty is temporary.